Hello, well today the government presented its third budget, a very important budget from New Zealand's perspective. So Budget 2011 shows that the government has a very clear plan to get New Zealand back into surplus faster than had otherwise been expected, to get on top of the debt that New Zealanders owe overseas, and to provide a platform for strong growth both in terms of wages and the number of jobs that the economy creates. Budget 2011 is an unusual budget in so much that it's a zero budget. In that regard, we're not spending any extra new money. What we are doing is allocating more resources into those important and critical areas of health and education, and a large amount of cash, $5.5 billion, going to the Christchurch rebuild on top of the $3 billion that comes from EQC. To fund that, there are some changes in the budget, and Bill English will be speaking to you in a moment about those specific changes. But what I can say is that it's very important that New Zealand does get on top of its debt position. That means ultimately lower interest rates for New Zealanders. That means it's easier for businesses to borrow that capital. It ensures that you can afford to make your payments on your home, mortgages and the likes, and takes pressure off those household budgets. Over the last three budgets, the government has put in place a platform for growth. It's been a change in the tax system, which has ensured that we reward New Zealanders for hard work, for enterprise and for savings. We've ensured that we've tried to have a smaller government with more resources going into the front line. This is a government that's hired 1,000 extra nurses and 500 extra doctors in our time. We do have less people in the bureaucracy and we have less regulation. We think that's a way of ensuring that we encourage again our businesses to be out there creating jobs. Budget 2011 shows that over the next 4 years 170,000 jobs will be created, while inflation will stay low and the unemployment rate will come down. Obviously any government, particularly in an election year, wants to give people more money. But to do so would be, in our view, irresponsible, because in the end that money has to be repaid. And if New Zealand is going to be in a position where it can ensure that it can withstand any other sort of future shock that might come along, and in our time in government we've had quite a few: the global financial crisis, 2 earthquakes, obviously the collapse of finance companies and the likes. We need to be able to have a strong balance sheet to do that. And so in getting on top of our deficit, and we get on top of that very quickly, our deficit tops this year, it halves next year, halves the year after, and then it's gone. We're ensuring that future generations of New Zealanders are not saddled with enormous amounts of debt, and that your tax dollars are going to the things that you really care about: more police officers, more teachers, more nurses, more doctors, and not more money on interest rate payments. We believe in 3 years we've set the scene for a high growth economy in New Zealand to deliver the brighter future that we campaigned on. And importantly, the changes that we're foreshadowing today, which will have an impact on many New Zealanders because they do affect areas like KiwiSaver and Working for Families, are policies that we are putting up to the New Zealand public so they have an opportunity to vote on them in budget in election 2011. So that's our plan for New Zealand. It's one of growth, it's one of higher wages, it's a stronger economy, it's a more vibrant society, it's a country that shows that we care about those in need in Christchurch. We've supported the vulnerable and those that rely on the state, but we've also created, in my view, an entrepreneurial situation in New Zealand where Kiwis can get ahead. So on that note, I'd like to hand over to the Finance Minister, Bill English. He'll take you through a few more of the details. We thank you for your support of the national government. We believe that we're placing New Zealand in a position that very few countries can find themselves in, one that with a direct pathway back to surplus, one with a strong balance sheet, and one that can absorb and make sure that we maximise the opportunities that New Zealand will be presented with in the years ahead.
Well, thank you, Prime Minister. This budget follows on from the last 2 budgets under the John Key National Government, which is set out to lift New Zealand's prospects for a stronger economy, higher incomes and more jobs. And each budget we're putting in place the steps we believe are going to help achieve that for all New Zealanders. And we've been doing that in some pretty difficult times. So as the Prime Minister said, we have focused on protecting the vulnerable, supporting families through difficult times, now dealing with the Christchurch earthquake. But at the same time, we're achieving our longer-term objectives for the economy. Now, in this budget, we have had a strong focus on reducing the government's deficit. So this year, 2011, the deficit, because of the earthquake, will hit over $16 billion. In the budget that I presented, in the next financial year, it'll be around under $10 billion. Then it drops to $4 and then it drops to less than $1 billion in 3 years' time, and in 4 years we will have a significant surplus. That is going to help us deal with the problem of government debt. And what we tried to do there is to keep our public debt relatively low, and that's been quite a challenge because this budget includes around just under $9 billion in total for the Christchurch earthquake and a $5.5 billion Canterbury earthquake fund. But over the next 3 or 4 years we're going to absorb that extra cost and still keep our government debt below 30% of GDP. Now in the spending itself, spending and saving, we are continuing to focus on frontline services. So in the budget we are going to be putting more money into health, close to getting up towards 500 million, quite a lot of new money, plus some that's been shifted around within the health sector. Around 300 million a year into education. That continues the pattern of lifting our education standards through the national standards and making sure our children have the best access to the learning tools that they need. We're also going to be releasing 950 million for the rollout of ultra-fast broadband. Now this is a project which the Prime Minister has talked about since we were elected in 2008, and we're getting to the time now where that rollout will be seriously getting underway, alongside continued spending on our infrastructure that such as roads and rail that is vital for the long-term productivity of our economy. We need to give our exporters every advantage to be able to compete, to grow the earning part of our economy. Now we're paying for that and the Christchurch earthquake with reasonably significant savings that help us to eliminate the deficit. And the areas where those savings are coming from will include a rebalancing within KiwiSaver, where the government is going to be borrowing less to put into KiwiSaver accounts, and contributions from employers and employees will rise in 2013. The government's committed to KiwiSaver, and in this next budget we'll be we're putting aside around 600 million as an incentive for KiwiSavers, and over the next 4 years around $2.5 billion will go from the government into KiwiSaver accounts. We've also trimmed working for families. Around 3/4 of those who are on working for families will have increases in their working for families payments, and about 1/4 of the current recipients will see an average reduction of about $4 a week. There's also changes to student loans, which maintain the interest-free component but restrict the eligibility for student loans. The government has been keen to get the balance here right. We do need to eliminate the deficit. We have always focused on protecting the vulnerable and supporting families through what have been difficult times, and we believe we've struck that balance. Now the result of all this is some very positive growth forecasts for the New Zealand economy. It's taken a while to recover from both the New Zealand recession and then the global recession, but the economy is starting to pick up momentum, and the forecasts today, which reflect those of generally economists across the market, show us averaging about 3% growth over the next 4 years, and that is what is going to deliver us the 170,000 new jobs and some of those long-awaited wage increases that many households have been looking forward to. So we're pretty satisfied that this budget deals with the critical issue of the government finances at the same time as continuing the kind of spending that's going to maintain public services, but also investing in a more productive and faster growing economy in the future.